Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another exciting episode of TTTT, Therapy Tea Time Talk. Second part series, episode number 1. So we have a very special guest coming up onto our show today. She specializes in movement, neurology, strength, and also play. So what does that mean? Let's find out more from her now. Founder of Strength Therapy, Jackie Wu. Welcome to the show today.
Thanks, Richie. It's an honor to be on the show. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for taking your time out to come up to the show today. How's your day been?
Oh my gosh, it's been absolutely super busy since I woke up. Some meetings that ran long and whatnot, but pretty productive so far. Got a lot of things done.
Yeah, productive is always good.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to start by asking you a question here today. So tell us more about your profession and how long you've been doing it for, please.
Okay, so my profession, depending on who you're asking, so if because I do see clients one-on-one, so there's different aspects to what I actually do for a living. One is actually seeing clients one-on-one, and for those kind of people, because they see me for therapy treatments, right, to feel better and whatnot. So I tell them that I'm kind of like a Mary Poppins of the therapy business or the therapeutic industry. So they have, whatever they have going on with them, they come see me, and I basically help figure out what's going on with them, and then I teach them the ways to help them help themselves so that they don't run into that kind of trouble in the future, and they know how to do things themselves that can be self-sufficient. So I'm kind of like the Mary Poppins for people one-on-one. So I also teach internationally for therapists of either physical therapist or movement therapy, yoga therapy, that kind of thing. And a lot of my courses, I teach that there are very neurologically based. So there's certain courses that specialize in scoliosis, some in kinesiotaping, some in play therapy, those kind of things. So there's a lot of different types of things that I do specialize in, I guess if you couldn't call that specialization. So I try to basically help as many people as I can with as much of a reach as I can. So I do that on an individual basis with clients one-on-one, and then I also do that with teachers and instructors, and then also with professionals so that they can help more people as well. So that's kind of what I like to do. And then I'm starting to get into more of like an online approach right now too, trying to reach a different market or different demographic. So again, my main goal is to just try to reach as many people and help as many people as possible.
I think a lot of people are doing it, but I think at the same time, it's not something easy to do as well. So I think it's fantastic how you are actually progressing towards that side of the area too, eh?
Yeah, it's a very different realm because you don't get that personal interaction with people. You don't get to ask them questions that are specific to themselves, and you have to do more of like a general approach to things. So for example, like I have a full program for healing leaky gut and candida, and I made that program specifically for the general public just because I was tired of telling people or teaching that to people on a one-on-one basis, where I felt like I could spend that time teaching them different things and more things that are more specific to them. So I made that program that is just for the healing of the gut, because that is really important for a lot of people who are in pain and having movement issues. But the interesting thing I found about that is that when you're creating a program that you market to the masses, but you want to make it individualized, is that you need to teach them how to individualize it for themselves or customize it for themselves. So that program itself actually has a lot of like follow-up videos and PDFs and emails and that kind of thing to help people learn how to customize that program for them so that it fits their person and their lifestyle, their schedule and all that stuff, and whatever symptoms that they have going on. So it's a very different challenge than just seeing people one-on-one and then saying, okay, well now I want you to do this and this and this. So it's pretty interesting.
So my second question for you now is, so I guess you kind of answered that already, because you mentioned about specifically working with your clients, but now it's more based on telehealth. But specifically in terms of the context and the setting of which you're based. So what is the type of setting that you're based in the past and in that case?
I'm completely clinically based. So depends on where I am in the world, because sometimes I'll see clients, when I'm traveling teaching, and so it's not in any type of like hospital setting or anything. Sometimes I'll be working out of colleagues' clinics, or sometimes I'll be working out of a gym. Over here in California, where I'm based, like home base, I work out of my home office. So I have like a separate area of the house that is designated for therapy and manual work, and also for play, just whatever kind of therapy that they need. So it's not a hospital setting, it's more of like a private setting, and I kind of work with whatever I have at that place. Like I mean, when I'm traveling, it could, I mean, I've even seen clients that are just out in the streets, right? And I've had treated people who have scoliosis at a coffee shop before, you know, so I kind of make do with whatever I've got. So I can, because one of the things that I do with my therapy is that I firmly believe in minimalism as far as equipment and things that are necessary for the treatment, but maximum benefit. Okay, so if I think that somebody needs like a specific tool or whatever, and let's say like the professionally advertised thing costs like $300 or whatnot, right? And I'm like, well, this other thing over here that you can just go get at the dollar store, you probably have it at your home for like $3. You know, I'd much rather have them use that than the $300 thing that they might only use for a couple weeks, you know? Or if there's a way that they can do it without the equipment but still be extremely effective, I'll still have them do that too. Like I don't believe in having people, you know, buy and do all the fancy things. I just believe in the minimal effective stuff to get the most benefit for that person. So very adaptable as far as where the setting is.
Also, when you discussed a little bit about equipment there as well, right? So cost effective is definitely something I think is extremely important.
Absolutely. Right? I've had people, I've taught people how to treat their own scoliosis with a roll of toilet paper before.
Now that is something very unique in you. Now, my next question here for you is, all right, so what is your role within the healthcare system?
So I am kind of at the end stage of when people are looking for professionals to help them with their pain and issues. So I work with kind of like the mystery stuff. So I like to tell people that they should probably have already gone through several avenues that didn't work first. So other physios or movement trainers, massage therapists, whatever, right? And they didn't work, and that's why they found me. I actually don't do any advertising for my personal services at all, and there's a purpose for that, and the reason why is because I want them to go through all those different avenues first, because by the time they get to me, I mean, number one, I like to figure out all the weird stuff, right? All the unique, the stuff that people don't usually get to play around with because there's too many regulations around like how to figure out like what's going on with that person. Like, so I like puzzles, right? Like I like things that are a little bit more difficult to solve. So it's really fun for me. But then also, second thing is I like to help the person by giving them responsibility and teaching them that they do need to take responsibility for their own life and their own health and their own well-being in order to actually have sustained progress and improvement and recovery, if you will, right? Because again, by the time they've come to me, typically it's because it's a problem that's been in their system for a really long time, meaning that the quick fixes don't work for them. They actually do need a sustained effort to become well and be well and stay well. So when I'm giving them the homework or basically teaching them how to take care of themselves for what they need, they're more likely to do it because they realize that this is not just a, here, you fix it for me, you know, because, you know, I don't want to fix things for them. I want to teach them how to help themselves. Again, like I'm a Mary Poppins, right? So in order to build that value for the things that I want to give to them to do for themselves, they have to have gone through various stages of searching and pain and suffering, that kind of thing, to build the value for themselves for the service that I'm willing to provide for them.
In that case, can you tell us a little bit more about what you specifically specialize in, because you have so many specialties?
Well, I specialize, I guess you could say, in holistic health in a non-traditional way. And because I do that, there's a lot of different conditions that I have been known to help resolve, one being scoliosis. And scoliosis is one of those things that just kind of caught wind because of the quick results that I was getting with them, but then also it's very visible changes, right? Could be because you have like an S curve or whatever type of curve in the spine, and then when you make the changes, it's a very visible change. So that kind of caught wind and got a lot of publicity very quickly. So I'm pretty well known for the scoliosis, or that course called Scoli Method, to teach people how to do that, so I can help more people again around the world. But also I've been more also known for play. Right, so play is something that is more my personality, more my lifestyle, and I tie that in with neurology and with therapy so that people can use play to become better, right? So we'll run into a lot of people, as therapists, we'll run into a lot of people of all sorts of ages, demographics, backgrounds, whatnot, who don't like the normal homework that they'll receive from their physical therapist or from their trainer or whatever, where it's just like one movement is like really boring, right? Like, I mean, we all know the rotator cuff, these ones, like super boring, right? Like if you have like frozen shoulder, you're like climbing up the wall ladder. They're standard. Yes, they work for many people, but also it'll only work if they do the homework, right? And so play is something that I've found that it helps people a lot faster than doing exercises, because it involves a lot more of the brain and the body together, and it involves curiosity, and it also what's it called? Creates more neural connections faster. It builds those neural connections faster, so you're rewiring the brain a lot faster because of several different reasons, right? So with play, number one is there's curiosity, there's reaction involved with it. You have to pay a lot of attention to it, and it's also a lot of fun. And those are just some very basic things about play that make it very enjoyable and also beneficial for people to do. And so when you know how to use play specifically for therapy and what you're targeting in that therapy, then you're able to help somebody with a targeted problem, and they're able to see the results and feel the results a lot faster. Okay, so I think I never get these numbers right or anything, but there's something about taking like 10,000 repetitions to actually build a neural connection in the brain for normal exercise, that kind of thing. But if you do it through play, it only takes maybe like, I think it was like 500 to 700 or something like that. It's a very drastic difference is what I'm saying, right? So, and again, the reason why is because you're involving a lot more of your body, you're involving a lot more of your brain, your sensory, and it's a lot of fun, and you have to pay a lot of attention, and there's reactive component to it too. Okay, so it helps a lot faster. And I'll give you an example of being able to help somebody very quickly through play. Okay, this was in our last TheraPlay class in Thailand, okay, and there was somebody there who had a shoulder problem, right? And he said that, so this guy, just to preface, he moves very well. He's extremely mobile, extremely flexible, and that's all extremely strong, right? So he's a therapist himself. So for him to have a problem means that there is something that he couldn't figure out himself, right? And so he was having a shoulder problem, basically scooping to go reach for something. Okay, and he said that, when he was bending down to go pick up his keys, that kind of business, that wasn't really, he was feeling pain and discomfort, or it just didn't feel right. Okay, and so what we did was we kind of broke down the mechanism of this movement over here, and then we came up with a game to play with this person to allow him to use that chain, if you will, very comfortably and more fun and with a different purpose. And we used a straw actually for this one. It was actually pretty fun. So we called it the straw game. But we only did it for, I think we had him do it for about 10 or 15 seconds. And after that, immediately he was able to do that movement without any problem whatsoever. And he was able to sustain that, like it was actually like corrected after the 10 to 15 seconds of play. And what was even more interesting was he had a heart rate monitor on, like those watches that have the heart rate, that kind of thing. He had the heart rate monitor on, and because he's so analytical, because he's an engineer, he's looking at his heart rate, and he's like, oh my gosh, my heart rate spiked up like 10 points up. just from the 10 to 15 seconds of play that we did with a straw. And so I don't know if you follow my Instagram or whatnot, but in my Instagram story, where I was just a couple days ago, I was talking about how my personal resting heart rate right now is at 47 when I don't do any cardio, and I only work out twice a week, right? And part of the reason why is because the workouts that I do, it's not necessarily like physically tough or anything. It's more focused on rehab, because I hurt my knee I don't know, about a year and a half ago. And I also broke my back over a decade ago. And so I've asked my trainer, because everyone needs a coach, to focus more on my rehab and making my weakest links strong. So, so then I can be a complete, strong completely, instead of just having like weak links, right? And so because we're working on those weak links in a very effective way, and it's fun, my heart rate gets worked up, right? My heart gets worked, my entire system gets worked, and my nervous system gets worked and challenged in a way that is healthy and safe, right? And not too overly stimulating. And so when you've been doing this for a while, it's like you're using that as a cardio type of effectiveness. And then it just ends up that, you know, you're doing cardio, but without doing cardio, if that makes any sense. So there's a lot of different ways to use play for therapy and also for exercise and whatnot too. And I like to teach people that it is possible to do it. And not only that it's possible, that it's actually very effective. It's a lot more fun, it's a lot more sustainable, and you can do it anytime, any day, anywhere, because the whole world is your clinic. And that's why I say, when you ask me like where I'm based off of, or like where I practice, I don't really have any place that I have to be at, because if I'm at a park with just grass, I can help somebody, because I can find different ways to use the environment to help the person with whatever that they need. Okay, so that's a big part of the play thing. So I'm trying to get the word out to everybody that play is not just for kids, it's for everybody, and it's not just for fun. It can be also used for therapy as well. So there's my little plug on play.
So how long approximately is each one of the sessions?
The ones that I do myself, or
well, specifically for your play classes.
For my play classes, so I don't do classes for individuals. That would be like more like a one-on-one thing, right? Because that's just the capacity that I work at. I have had some students put on a TheraPlay class, right? That they've talked to me and called it TheraPlay, and I'm fine with it. But they can do those classes as well. My actual course itself, it's a 2-day course, so it's a two-day full day course. When I see clients one-on-one for helping them with whatever that they need, I typically have it at about 50 minutes. So I tell them 50 minutes, right? So I'll typically go between like 50 minutes to an hour and 15, depending on what they need and whatnot for that day. And because I just under promise, over deliver, right? So that's kind of what I do. And the way that we break it down is the first session is mainly going to be a lot of like history taking. So it's a conversation, okay? And history taking is probably one of the most important parts of being an effective therapist, because in my opinion, if you don't know what you're looking at, if you don't know the whole picture of that person, you don't know what's actually a possibility of what's going on. So it's kind of like if you're to bring your car into the mechanic and you say, oh yeah, it's making this sound, right? And then they don't run a diagnostic on it, right? They don't check it out. They don't run a diagnostic. They're just like, oh, it's making the sound. Let's just start doing stuff, right? It's not extremely effective. So we need to run a diagnostic, which part of it is going to be history taking. We need to see like, how many accidents it's been in, like is it a lemon, all service history, like all that kind of stuff, so you get a better picture of that person and what you're working with, right? So I do spend quite a bit of time on history taking. I actually send my clients the intake form ahead of time for them to fill out and bring to the first appointment, so that it saves them time, and then I can just ask them more questions that aren't on the intake, and I can also talk to them about whatever they wrote on the intake as well too. So there's an art to history taking that I actually teach us that as a segment in my scoliosis course, because it is such a comprehensive course, so that people can learn how to effectively take a history, because most people don't learn how to take an effective history. They just learn how to ask questions, but they don't know how to actually take an effective history. So I do go over that in my courses. And so after the history taking, and that will always depend on how long of a history that person has. So sometimes my history taking will be 10 minutes. Sometimes it'll take 2 hours, right? And it always just depends on the person and their situations, right? And whatever history that they have going on. I make my clients aware of this fact before they even come in. And it's all in my pre-appointment paperwork stuff that says, hey, you know what, this is what's going to happen. And if we have any leftover time, or whatever time that we have left over in that designated time that we have for them, that's when you just start jumping in and just start doing assessments and treatments. And again, it's basically whatever that person needs. So I don't have any set rules of, oh, I only spend 10 minutes on assessment, I spend 10 minutes on history, I spend the rest of the time on treatment. It's not like that, because I don't want to let time dictate quality. So sometimes I'll do 5, like for the continuing sessions, right? Sometimes it's like 5 minutes of reassessment, right? And then the rest of the time we're doing treatment, and then in the treatment we'll go back and reassess to make sure that we're on the right track. And then sometimes they come in and like something was completely off, and we'll start over again, and we'll see what holes that we might have missed in the history, and we'll do another assessment. It might even take another 30 minutes for that new assessment in history, because something has changed, right? So it's not like a designated, oh, this percent of time for this percent of time this percent of time for that. Does that make sense?
That's perfect. So I was also wondering then, in that case, do you still give your patients homework, but in a different type of context?
Yes, absolutely. So just like I mentioned before, I consider myself kind of like the Mary Poppins for therapy. So they will always be sent home with something proactive that they can do to integrate into their life and help them. Sometimes the activity is temporary, right? And then sometimes it's a little bit more long-term. So if I'm working with somebody who needs to make some type of a life change, maybe like they need to not have light exposure so late at night, like close to bedtime, that kind of thing, right? So I'll tell them that, and then I'll teach them the reason why, and then I'll teach them what they can do, to do that at home or when they travel or whatever it is, and help them strategize like how to make that fit into their life, because some people might need to work late at night, right? So for example, me, I do a lot of communications in Asia while I'm in Taiwan, or while I'm in California, right? So a lot of my communications happen after the sun goes down, right? Or it's like the first thing when I wake up, right? And so there's strategies to do that kind of thing while still maintaining the like the light health for your body, because that really does affect a lot of people, especially people with adrenal issues and hormonal issues, right? So I can give them homework like that. So it's more like life-changing strategies, right, for them to implement, or it can be something as simple as short-term as, okay, for the next 3 days or the next 2 days or whatever, I want you to do this particular exercise, or just I want you to do this particular game, or whatever it is. And then when they come back in, then we'll reevaluate and we'll give them something else to do, and so it really just depends on the person. But I do like to give people something to do after they leave, so that they can continue taking responsibility for their own health.
So now we're going to take it a little bit more further and asking questions in regards to advice that you'll give people that are new to your field. Now, because you have many different specialties, and what I wanted to ask you is specifically, are there any advice then in that case that you would give to people that want to enter your field?
Yes. I mean, there's a lot, right? Number one, I would say, is to learn from as many different people as possible. And even if they're not in your profession, if they're not your background, but they've learned like the same technique or something like that, you can still shadow them, still learn from them. And what will happen with that type of learning environment is that you will learn different ways of doing the same thing, right? Or different ways of using one tool, right? Those are two different things, right? So for example, if I have a pen, right? So this would be a tool, and let's just say I give this to a contractor, like a construction contractor. They might use this to like take notes and do calculations and draw stuff and whatever. But then if you give this to, let's say, a child, right, who doesn't know how to write or draw, they might take this and they might like spin it around, they might throw it as a dart, right? So it's different ways to use one tool, right? And then there's another thing is when you're learning from different people in the same industry, and they all know different things, right? So you can see how different people approach one problem, one situation. Right? And so it helps you become a little bit more well-rounded and not so laser focused and only being able to do things one way, right? So you see a lot of people out there who are, they're like, oh yeah, I specialize this in one modality. I only do this one modality. And it's a great marketing tool for the general public, but if that's how they practice, then they're doing their clients a disservice, because there's so many different ways to work with one condition, right? That you actually, in my opinion, you need more modalities, or not necessarily a lot, but just like more than one modality to effectively treat a specific condition if that's what you're trying to do. And it's kind of like anything else. Like if you're driving, right? If you're driving from point A to point B and you only know the one route, what happens if there's construction on that route, or a roadblock or something, or a flood or something, and then you can't go your normal route? What do, right? Are you stuck, or can you find a different route? Can you find a different way, right? Or what if your car breaks down? What happens? You know, do you just sit in your car and wait? You know, or do you get out and walk? Do you hitchhike? Do you take a bike? What do you do? Do you public transportation? You know, that kind of thing. So I think it's really important to be able to learn different ways to do the same thing and different ways to use the same tool. I think those are, that's probably like one of the most important things in my mind for new people.
And now, if you can go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice, what would you give yourself?
Oh man, if I were to give myself a piece of advice, I mean, I probably would have liked to shadow more people. I did a lot of shadowing when I first started out in the therapy realm, but I think I could have done a lot more. And especially now that I know that I can learn from more like just the different types of people out there, right? But I think one of the most important things, not only just shadowing the people, right, but also networking with them, like asking them who they learned from, asking them who they would learn from if they could, you know, that kind of thing, and then go learn from those people. I have a really good friend of mine, one of my best friends. He's so good at networking. Like he's one of the best people that I know for networking, and he's always asking people, who would you want me to meet? Right? Who would you want me to meet? Who would you want me to talk to? Who would you want me to shadow or have a conversation with, or whatever, like that kind of thing. And he is very active about it. And I think that's so great in not only like the education standpoint, but just kind of in a general everything standpoint. Because for me, like I'm more of the, like I'm not a great networker. I kind of wait for people to come to me. And so for me, like I think it would have been great if I could have gotten out of my shell to ask people, hey, who would you want me to talk to? Who can I talk to? Who do you suggest I talk to if I want to learn about X, Y, and Z? And then take that action to go do so. So it's basically just, you know, getting the kahunas to do that.
Thank you for that great elaboration. Thank you very much for your time today, Jackie, and thank you for sharing your story with us today. So I hope everybody can learn a lot from her, and everybody have a nice day.
Thanks so much, Richie.